setting your passion on fire with special guest Scott Allan on today's episode. Today's episode is brought to you by Pro Writing Aid. Save thousands of dollars on an editor by using the best tool in the business at servemaster.com/Pro Writing Aid.
Are you tired of dealing with your boss? Do you feel underpaid and underappreciated? If you want to make it online, fire your boss and start living your retirement dreams now, then you've come to the right place. Welcome to Serve No Master Podcast, where you'll learn how to open new revenue streams and make money while you sleep. Presented live from a tropical island in the South Pacific by best-selling author Jonathan Green. Now, here's your host.
I really enjoyed my interview with Scott Allan. I can't wait to share it with you in just a moment. If you look closely, maybe you'll figure out which movie star he looks like to me. And he has something about his voice that's so hypnotic. It's just so relaxing and so soothing. You can see why people love listening to him. And I was so excited to have him as a guest for today's episode. He's going to teach us strategies for figuring out what you truly want and what you should do, how to take over life and time management and develop those skills, which is so important because there's such a challenge for those of us who transition from working part-time to full-time. Suddenly we have so much time. It's hard to fill that time efficiently, and how to use writing as a lever or a mechanism to escape the 9-to-5 lifestyle. Scott's an amazing expert. We're really, really lucky to get him for today's episode, and I know you're going to love everything he has to say right now. Everyone, I'm so excited here to have Scott Allan. He's an amazing best-selling author of 9 books, including Relaunch Your Life, Do It Scared, and Drive Your Destiny. He's on a mission to help people break down mental barriers and the limitations that keep them stuck so they can finally take some action and start to do the work they love. This is something I'm very excited by. He's also dedicated a great amount of his time to learning all the necessary techniques and strategies to design an abundant and a thriving lifestyle. And in his books and blog posts, he shares those strategies. And his goal, of course, is to work together with his followers to design a life that's fun, challenging, and means there's something more to life than working beyond the mundane 9-to-5. Thank you so much for being here right now, Scott. We're really excited to have you as part of this event. And I know we've got some really great stuff to talk about. And I'd love to start. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about the overall theme of your books.
Sure. So the theme of my books, I cover topics that helps people to get over rejection, overcome fear, and to live a thriving lifestyle and do what they do best, do what they love to do.
How can people figure out what they want to do best? Sometimes people, they're like, oh, I have 10 hobbies. I'm not sure what I want to do. It's like when we're kids, it's so easy to know what we love to do. We just want to play all the time. But when we're adults, sometimes we get so caught up in the grind, we're not even sure what we want to do.
Yeah. So what I found is that working with people is that they tend to be very disorganized in the way that they feel like the thing that they should be doing is what they feel most passionate about. But when they really dive into it, it's not so much the passion, but it's that driving force that they have to tap into, this driving force that's really, it's been there the whole time, since they were kids. So when I work with people one-on-one, we try to discover what that thing is or what it was, and to bring it back out into the, into their presence so that they can use the strategies that I have in my books to expand on that and focus on the one thing that they really love to do the most. So, like you said, people have like 5, 10, 20 hobbies. They're not sure what it is that they want to do. You can't master everything. And you can do a few things really well, or you can do one thing exceptionally well. So we narrow in on that one thing that they've always been exceptional at doing, and we get them onto a track where they can take action-based steps that gets them moving forward to make that progress.
So with this passion for helping people, which is amazing, I love what you're talking about because it took me a long time to figure out what I want to do with my life. I spent 10 years in the wrong career. How did you transition from that to becoming a writer and decide on the theme of your books? How did that process start?
Yeah, I've always been reading and studying books on personal development, self-help, I guess for the last 20 years or so. And I've always been a writer at heart. And I wrote my first book when I was probably 14 or 15. And then I gave it up when, I don't know, life stuff just got in the way. And like yourself, I ended up in a series of careers that I won't say that they were the wrong things, that I was doing the wrong things, but it wasn't what I really wanted to do, but all of those jobs, the things that I was doing eventually led into the writing because I had to, sometimes you have to do the things you don't want to do before you start doing the things that you'd love to do. So I'd always talked about writing books, and one day I just got so tired of talking about it. I thought I'm just going to finally start doing it again. So, and that was it. I just sat down with pen and paper, brainstormed my goals for that, ideas for the books, and it started from there. Originally, I was actually a fiction author, and then I started to create the nonfiction series of books that I have now by drafting those out one by one. And, it was really hard in the beginning because I still had a full-time job and I had to go to that every day. I had small kids, and a lot of people that I work with are in a similar situation where they're so busy, they don't have time to work on their dreams. So, but what I discovered is that, we all have that same amount of time in a day, and you just have to carve it out, whether it's an hour a day, 30 minutes a day, but you have to commit to something in order to work on that, to work on your thing. And like you were saying, you have to also know what that is. So again, for me, I did meditation on it. I mean, I still meditate, but I did a lot of meditation on it, visualization. I knew what it was that I wanted to accomplish. It's just a question of how was I going to do this thing?
So you mentioned, this is interesting to me, that you started on fiction and then transitioned to nonfiction. What was that like, and what's the difference for you in those two processes? Like, how do you find it different?
Yeah, for me, the nonfiction was, it just felt like it was something that I had to do at that time, and it still is. I felt compelled to write it, although I had already written a couple of fiction books. I did not publish them. I shelved them, and they will be published at a later date, but I just felt like there was a calling for me to put out at the time I was working on one fiction novel and, a nonfiction. I was working on a fiction book, shelved it. I went to work on the nonfiction book, and I just felt driven to get this thing done. And that was what I did. I committed 3 years it actually took me 3 years to write it. And then I self-published it probably 3 or 4 years after from the date that I'd started it. So there was a long process there, because when I started writing again, self-publishing still wasn't around. And then, maybe when I eventually published it in 2011, I think Amazon was, probably getting going, and then people were getting kind of jumping on board and that, but there weren't like a lot of courses or any courses at that time on how to do it. So I just learned from Steve Scott was a good mentor for me. I learned a lot from him, other books that I picked up, but it was a big learning curve. But I think it just came down to this one thing, is that whatever it takes, so when people ask me, well, what does it take for me to well, my answer is always, well, whatever it takes, that's what you have to do, whether it's finding that time, skipping your lunch hours to work on your thing, staying up late at night. It's just, that's what it takes for you to find your success. Then, you have to commit to getting it done that way. So
That's a really good point, because I find a lot of people, when I say, oh, well, if you want to have your whatever it is, you have to give something up, whether it's going out at night, or if you want to lose weight, you have to stop drinking and stop eating cake or something like that. We've had 3 birthday parties here this week. That's why cake's on my mind. It's like every day temptation. I'm like, kids, eat it as fast as you can so daddy doesn't eat it. But we always have these excuse, like, oh, I want to learn this, but I don't want to stop watching TV. I don't want to do that. How can people overcome that barrier? Because first, it's identifying what their like bad habit is, where they're spending time without realizing. Because a lot of people say I have no time, and I say, well, how much TV do you watch every week? And they're like, oh, 20 hours. And you go, well, what if you stopped? Or what if you just didn't watch commercials? You'd get 2 or 3 hours back a week. But so I guess it's that process. How do people identify where their opportunity is to invest time, and then how do they create that motivation?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That was the challenge that I faced. It still is. I mean, because I'm very easily distracted, and like everybody else, love to watch my Netflix and those other things. But back then, when I had even less time, I was probably putting in, I was always talking about writing a book and this and that, but I never had the time for it. And yet I was putting in probably an hour to 2 hours a day watching TV, playing games, etc., everything else but writing, So I had to identify what those top 2 or 3 things were, or at least the top number one thing that was stealing my time per day, and eliminate it. And that meant unplugging the television, not completely, but I would just not watch any TV during the week. And I'm still kind of like that, not as much, but I definitely cut down on it by 90%. And the video game console was out the door. There was no question about that. So, those are the 2 big time wasters for me. Also, identifying what my distractions were. So that I would keep a note of these things in front of me, sticky notes on the wall. I have a little sticky note I still keep on my computer. It says, "What are you doing now?" Because when I get sidetracked on something, I need to bring my focus back. And then the next thing is identifying, now that you've gotten those things taken care of, identifying the times of day where, now that you're not doing this, what will you be doing for this time block? So I'm really big on time blocking. For example, my writing time, I time block that in every day. It's not the same time every day, but it is that 1 hour or 2 hours per day that I put in for writing. And again, maybe you're not a writer, you're building your online course, your business, whatever it is. What gets scheduled gets done. So I've got to time block that in, and then protecting that time no matter what. And of course, we have family and other commitments that we have to work around, because not everybody is just going to drop everything when we suddenly become busy with our life's passion. So sometimes that time block was late at night, and other times it's early in the morning. So that's the strategy that I started using in the beginning, and it's it's still working to this day. So
that's really interesting, because sometimes I notice that if I don't have a plan, I sit at the computer, I've done something for 2 hours, and I go, I don't know what I did. And it's like, we have all these alerts. Like, I have so many different chat programs. So that's why even at the start of our call, I had to close 5 of them, because everyone uses a different one that I work with. It's like Skype and Facebook Messenger, and my team uses Rocket Chat. We have all these different things that are pinging at us, and then email as well. I don't know about you, but I get hundreds of emails a day, and I spend actually every week just a few hours making new rules into my email inbox, saying, push this into the fluff folder, this goes into the spam folder, this goes into alerts, this goes into never going to look at it. And then today when I turn on my email, it goes, it looks like a ton. Then I click on the inbox I'm supposed to look at it. It goes, you have 3 emails. And we don't realize how much of the email is junk. So I wonder, what's the best process people can use to use their time efficiently, to not get distracted? Because our computers have stopped being work tools, and now they're like entertainment tools as well. So how can people be a little more focused and figure out what's the best use of their time? What is the biggest ROI, the biggest return on investment, or the biggest, most efficient use of their small blocks of time?
Yeah, I found that focus is definitely a challenge. It still is. And similar to yourself, I have Slack and HubSpot and all these other, so I'm getting pings and messages, and I just had to, so what I do in my daily work is I schedule time for those things as well, but I have to turn them off when I'm on my computer. I'll take the apps, I'll basically, take the apps, disengage them. They're off. They're not even turned on. Because if they are, and my phone as well, that's another thing. Phones are great. They can do amazing things, but they're pinging and buzzing and jumping around when you get a message. And it's just like that instant gratification. You want to go check to see who's contacting you. So there is an app that I was using. Sorry, I can't remember the name of it, but it was actually, it eliminates all of that, and it just uses a timer. And that timer is what I use when I'm working. I've got myself on a 25-minute timer. So the other option is just to turn the phone off, get rid of the apps. And I've got probably the tomato timer that works really well. And it does 25 minutes, 5-minute break. And I've been using that for the last year or so. And it's just been amazingly good, because it's the only thing that I'm actually watching as I'm working, and I can check to see how much time I've got until the timer ticks down. So, but that ROI, that's the thing that I've talked about with a lot of people, because when you start out on something, and even if you're really passionate about it, you're not really sure, like, well, what if I invest a year or 2 or 3 years into this, say, writing a book, starting a business, whatever it may be. You don't know at the end of it if you're going to get your money's worth. Maybe you've just invested $10,000 or $20,000 into this, scheme or grand plan, and at the end of it, it didn't work. So that is part of the risk. But that's why I always believe that if you want to become successful at something, then first of all, you have to know, like, why you really want it. Like, how important is this thing to you? Are you sure that it's you that really wants it, or is it somebody else? Right. And the third thing is you have to have a plan to get there, and also understand, like when you do reach that goal, what does that look like? Are you going to be free of your job? Like, if your end goal is to, like, eventually quit your job and, go work for yourself full time, doing something you love to do, then, what are you going to have to give up along the way? And what's it going to look like at the end, after you've achieved that goal? Now, as far as like a guarantee on success, well, nobody can guarantee that, but I always believe that, if I'm doing the thing that is just driving me, if something's driving me to get this thing done, then I just feel like I'm just going to follow that. Like, that's the best advice I can give, is to just, like, I don't want to make it sound cheesy, like follow your heart and all that, but it was really like investing in something that I totally believed in. And, if it doesn't work out, well, I didn't lose anything to begin with, hopefully not too much. But if it does, well, I mean, it could change everything. So
I find that sometimes, like when I'm talking with a coaching client of my own throughout my career, all the different careers I've had, sometimes I say to someone, well, what's your goal? And then they say, well, it's this, like, oh, I want to quit my job. And it's like, well, what is that like? Or what do you actually want? Or sometimes they go, oh, I want to write a book. And they're like, well, what if you write a book and no one ever reads it? Would you be satisfied with that goal? And then they go, oh no, well, actually I want this. And they go, and so sometimes it's hard for people to elicit or actually say what their real goal is, because they say what they think they're supposed to say. They go, oh, I just want to write because I love the art. But it's like, no, you want to make money from your book and those things. So how can people kind of get to through that actual process to figure out what their goal really is? Because sometimes people achieve what they wrote down their initial goal was, and then they're not happy because they incorrectly predicted what they wanted to achieve.
Yeah. So I spend a lot of time, doing goal planning, writing things out, trying to figure out, like, what's the best approach? Like, what's my number one thing that I'm shooting for? Because I've got 5 or 10, master goals that I've got outlined for the next, say, 10 years. Right. But, when I start to focus on all of those things, I get, very overwhelmed, first of all. Secondly, I'm probably working on more things than just, say, writing a book or creating a course. And third, when that happens, you get frustrated and you give up, and then you go back to either the drawing board or you just give up completely and go back to doing what you're doing before. So I suggest to people to, and this was something that worked really well for me. I'm really big into mind mapping, and I started mind mapping my top 3 goals that I wanted to achieve in the next, say, 5 years. And then I took that number one goal and made that the number one thing. And I had mind maps, I probably had 3 big mind maps in my room. Visual boards is what I call them. They're called visual boards. And that's where I would map out, the big dream, because I needed it to look real. I mean, I needed to feel it. I needed to believe in it. And so I needed something visual that I could come to every day. And it was on my wall, so I could actually add things to it. And it was just great because it kept me moving in. I think I was moving in the right direction, but I knew that because next to that, I had a list of tasks, like daily tasks of things that I had to do to lead up to, accomplishing this thing. Was like hundreds of tasks, but it was broken up over like months or a year. So it's really like it's that long-term commitment as well. I work with a lot of authors who say they want to write full time and make money from their book, like you said, but so we know it's not that easy to make money from a book, and it's a long-term commitment. And there's a lot of noise out there about how you can make money overnight if you write a 30-page report and and make $10,000 and all that. But it's not true. And I tell people, like, if you really want to do this, it's got to be a long-term commitment, and you've got to have a plan to get there. It's not going to be a perfect plan, but be prepared to be flexible and, be prepared for big changes along the way. And the change thing kind of scares people because they're thinking that the big change is going to come at the end when they've achieved their goal, and there's going to be this big transformation. But actually, transformation is going to happen along the way. Not everyone's going to like what you're doing, but if you stay 100% committed to it, in the end, they're going to understand it. So, I work with people on, creating a vision for that, and then making a decision that they're going to accomplish what they set out to do, no matter what. And then again, doing whatever it takes to get there, and tweaking, making whatever tweaks they need to make along the way. And eventually, if you stick with it, whether it's, if you want to be a full-time author, this is what it takes. Not the one book or the two books, but when I show people like the actual blueprint of what it really takes, they get really intimidated because it's a lot of work. But again, it's, if you really want to do this thing, then you've either got plan A, which is short-term focused, and you might make a few dollars, or you might, but you're not going to be able to, you're not going to be quitting your job overnight. But if you go over here, maybe you can accomplish this in the next 5 to 10 years, and yes, you can achieve your goals. So I try to make it, I have to make it realistic. It has to be grounded in reality. No fluffy dreams of like overnight success. You probably know overnight success takes 5 to 10 years at least to accomplish anyway. So
that's really interesting, because I know so many people, they're like, oh, I want to build an entire business in 30 days. I'm like, I would love to do that too. I've been doing this for a decade now, and I'm still building to where I want to get to. So I like that you talk about having a long-term plan. This year, I'm all about process. So I'm constantly writing down and going, how can we be more efficient? What's the right process to do that? So that I know that it's consistent action over time is a lot more valuable than big action for a week and then quitting and running out of energy. So I'm all about kind of that marathon mindset. And I know that you talk about 5-year plans, and most people don't think that far into the future. They're like, I'm just thinking 5 days into the future. So could you tell us a little bit about what your 5-year plan is going forward from the level you're at now and where you're going in the future?
Yeah. So my 5-year plan is I'm working on building a community of people who are dedicated to making massive change, like not just in their lives, but in the lives of others as well. But a lot of the people that, like, for example, readers who are reading my books, I get emails all the time from them saying, this is what I'm trying to accomplish, or this is what I want to achieve. Can you help me do this? They're looking for the best strategies now that's going to be able to move them forward. So I'm gathering all of this information actually this year. Like, I'm in a similar situation as you are, where I'm very business focused this year on, there's the creative side and then there's the business side, where I'm very focused on that and building out a system in order for me to be able to achieve that 5-year plan. But number one is building a very community that's very committed to, helping themselves and helping other people. Next is the books that I've been writing. I think I'll be releasing the 15th one at the end of March. And, they've, up until now, they've been covering a lot of different topics, but I'm narrowing things down so that it's more specific on, each book's more specific on one strategy moving forward. So, another part of the 5-year plan is creating not just a community, but it's like an ops center for where people can opt in, and then they can have they can choose to take, if this is what you want to do, you're going to be taking direction A, B, or C. So I'm still working out the logistics of it. Because last year, actually, I did quit my full-time job, and now I'm writing full-time and also doing coaching. And so a lot of my time is spent either writing or it's focusing on the aspects of the business, which is, getting more people onto the into my email funnel, but also giving them the direction that they need. Like once they opt in, like I want to know exactly who they are and what it is that they want to achieve, and then I want to build out the strategies to help them achieve it.
And what are some of the challenges you faced along this process, and some of the ones you see going forward in building out this amazing ops center, this place where people can have an amazing community to improve their lives?
Well, everyone's got a different goal. And I say 30 to 40% of the people, maybe they're over here in group A, and the other third are here, and the other third are here. So it becomes a little bit more complicated because if you create three things, it's almost like running three different businesses, right? Whereas if you've got that one thing, then you've got something where you can just funnel people into this one direction. But that's the challenge, and that's something we're still working on. Because I'm sure that might work if you're Tony Robbins and you've got 40 different companies and you can take people and put them into those different funnels. But I'm not quite at that level yet, and not sure if I will be or I want to be. But right now, it's just figuring out what is the best direction what can I help people achieve, and how can I help them to achieve it, and what do I need to build out to help them. It's not just about accomplishing goals too. It's a lot of people are just they don't have any goals at all. They just want to become less anxious in their current job, or they want to overcome certain fears that they can start dating again, or things like that. So it's just knowing what it is that they want, creating content that's going to help them to do it. And then being able to follow up with them after that to see if they've actually, accomplished what they set out to do. So, I guess, did I help them or not? That's, in the end, that's what I want to know. And if I did, fantastic. I want to know how that happened. And if I didn't, I also want to know what happened. So it's just, gathering that data and getting feedback from people.
What would you say is the number one reason you found success with your books over the past 10 years?
I think the reason for that, one of the reasons is, well, first of all, I was I don't want to use the word passion, but I was very driven to write the certain books that I did. And I think I put a lot of heart into them, as most people do when they write their books. But I was very specific about what I wanted in the book as well. So I didn't just, sit down and start pounding out a bunch of words. Well, maybe I did in the beginning, but eventually I started being very systematic in mind mapping the content, having a very solid outline, changing that as I went. I would give sample chapters to people and get feedback. I still do that to this day, but in the beginning, it was very important for people to go through each chapter, give me feedback on that, and also the targeting. I do target my books are more like for a general audience, so. I won't say it's not for everybody, but if you're looking to, overcome rejection, and as it turns out, most people are, although they won't admit it right out, this is the book that you need. So I was writing books that I knew could help the majority of the people, and also branding it so that I could, I was branding the books basically so that, I could help them overcome the obstacles that they were facing. And these are strategies that I would come up with. Sometimes I would adapt them from other resources, but when I put them into my book, I would break it down into a system so that if you're feeling this way, you have to go through and here's step 1, step 2, step 3. So I had a systematic approach to the material.
Building on that, what's the number one piece of advice or strategy you'd give to people that are trying to change the way they're living? What's the first thing that they can do to start feeling or experiencing some change?
Yeah. So probably the number one thing that worked for me in the beginning, and it still works now, is I wake up super early, usually around 5 a.m., sometimes 4:30, 5 a.m. And one of the things that I was doing for the longest time that was very unproductive was I'd wake up and start checking my email, seeing who contacted me, and then I'd start doing that first thing in the morning. So if that's what you're doing, first of all, stop doing that. Secondly, have something that you can work on. Like wake up really early. I think it's a great way to start the day. And especially if you have, family you need to take care of, and they usually get up like really early as well. So I got up early. I had a plan for when I woke up. I was going to work on like, maybe this one thing or a couple of things. And before I went to bed at night, I would have a plan of what that looked like. So every night before going to bed, I map out I map out the day. And that way, when I wake up, I know exactly what I'm doing. So being very systematic about that. Also, spend at least 1 hour a week. I usually do this on a Sunday night, where I'll spend 1, maybe 2 hours on that day mapping out what my week looks like. So aside from the full-time job I have to go to, and taking care of family or whatever it is that you have to do, I would map out my week and then plan the tasks that I am focused on for that week. I would plan it into my week. So knowing what it is that you have to do ahead of time. So you're not just showing up lost, and you're not, it's like showing up to write a book and you don't know what to write about because you didn't plan anything out to begin with. So,
okay. That's really, really valuable, because I think so many people get stuck in that idea. Well, we're first challenge, right, is to be able to use that 1 or 2 hours a day we have when we're not in our main jobs, and we finally quit that daytime job. Suddenly we have all this free time and we don't know what to do with it. So how do you stay productive now that you've gone over that transition, now that this business you're building is the main thing that you're doing, and suddenly you have, you know how to be efficient with small blocks of time, and now you have these massive blocks of time. How do you stay the course?
Yeah, that was really tough in the beginning, and a year later, it's still probably my number one obstacle. And I think it was Joanna Penn said too, I think it probably took her a year or two to actually get into the rhythm of that when she left her full-time job. So first of all, I need to be aware of when I'm wasting time, which yesterday, for example, I was sitting down for 2 hours, and after 2 hours, I realized I hadn't actually gotten anything done. And I just realized it like 2 hours later. And I actually backtracked to see what it was that I was working on. And I started checking the history of my computer, and, I was like, 1 minute I was writing, next minute I was off chasing something on Amazon. So it just happens like that. It's having that awareness, like that, you're actually doing something that you shouldn't be doing. And that's why I've got these little messages around, like, what are you doing now? I've got a timer set for 25 minutes that goes off. When it goes off, I'm either doing the thing that I should have been doing, or I'm not doing it. Right. So I found that if I've got like a 4-hour window in the afternoon, 4 hours is a long time to focus on one thing. So you really do have to break it up into, maybe you are that kind of person who can focus like that. I'm not. So it has to be in 30-minute segments, or it can be in 1 hour, like it can be 30 minutes, 1 hour, whatever works for you. I did find though that once you really get into something, you're really super focused on that, you can stay there for 2 or 3 hours. But it is good to, the other challenge is, of course, sitting, if you're sitting at a desk all day, I've got standing desk, of course, a sitting desk, standing desk. I need to move around and, get your exercise in. A lot of stretching helps as well. Stretching is fantastic for blood circulation. I've been doing that as well, and that's just had a huge impact. So, but anyway, yeah, like, if you are, I think working from home, it sounds like the dream job, but it can also go very wrong for a lot of people, because you're used to maybe being in that office. Maybe that's not where you want it to be, but when you're working from home, suddenly you've got all this quiet time, and it seems like free time when you're actually supposed to be working. So I found like changing up the environment as well. I have to leave home in the daytime to go, to a coffee shop actually to get the writing done, because I'm more productive there when I switch my environment around. So
that's amazing. That you've given us so much great knowledge today. Thank you for spending so much time with us. I know that people are loving all of this content and they can't wait to learn more about you. So thank you so much, Scott, for spending time with us. And I can't wait to see all the amazing feedback we're going to get for this awesome presentation. So thank you a lot for being here. And I know everyone else appreciates it. It was really, really great. I know I learned a lot.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. You can find out more about Scott at scottallanauthor.com. The link will be in the show notes, and it's SCOTTALLAN servemaster.com. Thank you, Rooster from next door. Let you guys know that, of course, I'm still in the garden recording these beginnings and endings, these intros and exits. We're really excited to have amazing content like this as part of the authorship series. Please show Scott some love. Throw a thumbs up below this video so he knows how much you appreciated his amazing content.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Serve No Master. Make sure you subscribe so you never miss another episode. We'll be back next Tuesday with more tips and tactics on how to escape that rat race. Head over to servenomaster.com/podcasts now for your chance to win a free copy of Jonathan's bestseller, Serve No Master. All you have to do is leave a 5-star review of this podcast. See you Tuesday.
Ready to turn your book into a bestseller? Find out what other authors don't want you to know at servemaster.com/secrets.